You're listening to the Intercoastal Podcast, part of the Destination Marketing Podcast Network. Welcome to the Intercoastal Podcast, where we explore all the stories, adventures, and cultures that make the Lowcountry unforgettable. This is a place to find your intercoastal. Speaking of finding your intercoastal, what does that really mean? We've released 117 episodes of the podcast so far, so we thought it was time to revisit the idea, especially for our new listeners. Joining me today to help with the conversation is none other than Robb Wells. Thank you for being here, Robb.
Oh, man, thanks for having me back on again. It's I love always being a part of the podcast, and anytime I get a chance to talk about the area, I love to do so.
Yeah, and talking with you, you're one of the most knowledgeable persons about the area. So that's always great when we get to dive in and just really elaborate about the area we get to live in.
That's pretty cool. It's a great place to live and work and do life, and we'll cover a lot of that today.
Yeah. Well, let's start at the beginning. When we first came up with the idea of Find Your Intercoastal tagline, what was the thought process behind it?
That's a great question. We didn't want just another slogan. We wanted something that felt personal, something that didn't just tell people to visit Beaufort, but like invited them to experience it in a way that stayed with them. Mm-hmm. Beaufort isn't just a place on a map. It's a feeling. It's a rhythm. It's the up and down of the tides. It's a way of life, and we wanted to capture that sense of discovery and slowing down, mm-hmm. Of reconnecting and with the things that matter. And that's where to find your intercoastal kind of plays a role. And for some, finding your intercoastal is standing on the shore and feeling the waves pull at your feet. And for others, it's getting lost in history and food and the people. And that's how we landed on Find Your Intercoastal, because it's a little different for everyone.
Yeah. And for that, it's not just a catchy tagline. It's not just a marketing ploy. For a lot of different locations and destinations, they're trying to get the most catchy thing to stick in your head. But for Beaufort, when you hear Find Your Intercoastal, especially for locals, there's so many different aspects. You can, like you said, you can truly feel what Find Your Intercoastal means. So when people go back home and they go tell people about their visit, that's them finding their intercoastal, is exploring and giving that explanation of, this is how I found my intercoastal.
Absolutely. So it may be a tagline for our advertising or in our publications, but for us it's a lifestyle that we want to convey and share with visitors and locals alike.
Yeah. And like we said, Beaufort isn't just a place, it's a feeling, a rhythm, a way of life. What does finding your intercoastal mean personally for you, Robb?
Well, to me it's about presence, like taking a deep breath and letting this part of the world, the Lowcountry, kind of work its magic on you. Maybe that's the way the light hits at sunset. It's pretty cool. It paints the sky in some oranges and purples and beautiful. For others, it may be the quiet at the marsh at dawn. It kind of reminds you to slow down and just be.
Yeah.
Kind of breathe in, breathe out, kind of relax. And that's a cool aspect of it. And also, it may be something that discovering what resonates with you. Whether it's the stories that are woven in and out of the history. I mean, we stumble across these fascinating stories that are part of Beaufort's history, mm-hmm. And they're fascinating, and they stick. Then, of course, it could be as simple as paddling on the water.
Yeah.
Kind of getting lost in one of these winding marshes that just kind of, puts you, it's just you, the water, and whatever, life is around you. Not a lot of noise. Not a lot of development in those areas, and it's just getting lost. And see, finding your intercoastal isn't just about a trip to Beaufort. It's about taking the sense of peace and wonder and joy that kind of this area and just take you with you wherever you go. And so that would be what Find Your Intercoastal is to me.
Yeah, and that's great, because I love that. When I think of Find Your Intercoastal personally, I think about hearing my mom tell stories about their visits here and how much fun they had at Water Festival. And that's what encompassed Beaufort as a whole, is like a water festival, a town, getting together, feeling that camaraderie of everybody, getting outside, feeling the warm weather, looking out at the water, the sunsets, and then the music's playing. And it's just that atmosphere where my dad saying, oh, he enjoyed the food that much and he really just wants to come back another time to just come back and eat. And it's all of that is what Find Your Intercoastal means to me personally.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's exactly right. I mean, and for some, like in our families, like, my family has relocated to the area. For years they've heard me talk about this place, and they've visited for years, and now they live here.
Yeah.
It became so much of they found their intercoastal when they moved here. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've tried to do the same thing to my in-laws and my parents, but no biting yet. So, but like I said, we love that find your intercoastal and what it means, and it's something for everyone. For visitors, it might be their first taste of the low country boil. For locals, it might be watching the sunrise over the Beaufort River, or getting out fishing. How do you find your intercoastal every day, Rob?
That's a great question. And it's basically, let's say I'm here, and first off, I get to work at a pretty incredible place.
Yeah.
I get to do something, telling the story of Beaufort, inviting people to come to the area. So it has its moments. And when things are getting, busiest, even for the busiest days, I try to find that moment to basically step outside, make my way down the waterfront.
Yeah.
Sit in the swings of Waterfront Park, just kind of take it all in. There's something about the salt water, the salt air, it does something for me.
Yes.
And that's a moment for me. So that's one way that I try to do those. And some other ways is try to find those in between quiet moments. I've told the story before. If you're not from here and you go downtown and all of a sudden traffic pauses, people stop what they're doing, and you hear the dong, 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 ting, 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 ting of the bridge swing, letting everybody know that traffic is going to stop for one of these beautiful sailboats that are going to make their way down the intra-coastal waterway. And that pause is just one of those moments.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful reminder of just kind of the coolness of the area, and that you're really in this coastal environment that is not trying to fabricate or commercialize this way of life. This is our way of life. And we tell that story to those locals and visitors, and it's just the way we go about it. So that is something to keep in mind. At least I try to keep in mind. And then I think we all have a way of like reconnecting what grounds us. For some, it's time on the water.
Yeah.
Obviously, for me, it's time on the water. For others, it's long walks through the historic district, which I encourage visitors and locals alike to do. It's a beautiful landscape. It's important for me. What's important for you?
Like you said, to kind of take those small moments. This past weekend, actually, Mariah went to the gym, my wife, and she came back from the gym and the sun was setting, since it's starting to get a little bit later for sunsets. And it was such a nice day. My mom asked me, are you going to take a walk and kind of get outside? And originally I wasn't, and I was like, no, I'm trying to relax and kind of keep it calm. But then I remembered where I live. So I was like, you know what, when Mariah gets back, we'll go downtown and we'll just enjoy, the town we live in. So we went downtown and we sat on the swings and watched the sunset from the water. And then it made us remember, like, we can actually just go downtown and sit on the water, on the swings, and watch the sunset. So we took a video and pictures and then sent it to my mom and my friends. And it was like, I'm blessed to be able to live here, because it's truly a vacation haven where people want to come and retire. And I tell my mom that I see why so many people retire here, because it's just a thing of beauty. And to be able to go out and sell that to visitors and motor coach and people who want to come to the area. I get all the time when I tell people I live in Beaufort, they're like, oh, you're so lucky. And oh, that's an amazing spot. It's beautiful.
I definitely
there.
hear that a lot. Yeah. Oh man, you're lucky living in paradise. You're like, yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So, and then on top of that, to sell it to visitors and people, there's no other better location in my mind.
Absolutely.
So that's me finding the intercoastal on a regular weekday, weekend, and just kind of taking it back, or coming back from the upstate. And as soon as you hit the bridge and you get the pluff mud smell and you're just like, oh, I'm home. That is finding your intercoastal, and it's a part of you.
I love it. That first spring trip to the beach is just like one of those moments that kind of reshapes it again. That you're talking about coming over the bridge and seeing the pluff mud. For me, it's getting out there that March, April, May timeframe, being out on the beach.
Yeah.
So the wind's a little chilly for us, but it's fantastic. Turn around and feel the heat and see the lighthouse and the birds and the people. And it's just, there's different moments. I love it.
Yeah. So I agree. If someone was listening and thinking, I want to slow down and connect with the lifestyle more, what advice would you give them?
It's to find your path, right? So it's to find that path. And Beaufort's known for like history and its beauty, and basically, that low country soul, that what comes to define us. And those stories stretch back for centuries. I mean, they're not just news stories. Whether it's the Gullah Geechee heritage or the legacy of Pat Conroy, right? These are all things that make us fantastic and unique. And for those that are discovering it for the first time, when you think of that low country, coastal, historic town, most people gravitate to one of our larger neighbors, whether it be Charleston or Savannah. And they're fantastic places to visit. But when you want the authenticity of the low country, Beaufort becomes the landing spot. And that's what I share with people, routinely. It's like, this is very much the way you see it. It's the way we do life here.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's the history, like you said. Once again, the past weekend when we went downtown and on our way back to the car, I was like, you know what? Let's go see the new Harriet Tubman Monument. So we went over there, and my wife was able to see that for the first time and kind of give her the backstory of why that was so important and why they're in that plot of land and the relationship it has to Robert Smalls and his house and gravesite there. So just kind of all of it encompasses what we are trying to do here in Beaufort, the history, the landscape, the relaxation. It's any way you're looking to find your intercoastal, we typically have it.
Absolutely.
So if someone was planning a visit to the area and they wanted to know more about the area, and we've had so many incredible podcast episodes, and they wanted to explore the attractions in more detail, what are some of the best episodes you would recommend for new listeners to get a deeper dive into Beaufort and the history of outdoors, the food scene? What specifically would you recommend?
Well, there's several episodes that dive into the history, whether it's the Gullah Geechee scene and the heritage and cultural aligned in that, or just some of the natural, some of the historic reconstruction area museum and having the national park here in the area. In some of those episodes. Others, it could be the outdoor adventure side. We've had things from Spanish Moss Trail to kayaking, paddleboard. I would say find what your settle place is. Like if you're a history buff, there are numerous episodes. If you are truly trying to immerse yourself in the coastal lifestyle, the Day at the Beach episode, which is one of our more popular ones, is an excellent episode to kind of get you cranking about what to do.
Yeah.
And then of course the food. Right, I know in the early podcasts there are some very low country specific recipes given at the end of the thing that you could do it where you're at now and prep for that. But then there's folks who tell the story of oysters or the restaurants and what they're serving day in and day out, and the food is amazing. And I would start there. Those would be my places to kind of gather, build your itinerary from there. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Fripp Island episodes are always good just because of the coastline and the beach that comes there. Hunting Island State Park has some good ones as well. But no matter what draws you here, there is a story that is waiting for you, and it might be just the one that helps you find your intercoastal.
Yeah, I agree. Those are all great episodes. It's hard to pick, one for every specific thing you're looking for when you come to Beaufort, but you did a great job of summarizing all of those. But before we go, Rob, let's have some fun. I'm going to throw out some Beaufort experiences, and you tell me, if they belong in the relax and recharge category or live your best adventure category.
All right, that sounds good.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Watching the sunset at Waterfront Park.
Absolutely relax and recharge, man. That's a staple.
Yeah, I agree. I felt, like I said, we went this last weekend. I felt recharged. I felt excited to come in and put in work for the town of Beaufort and the area of northern Beaufort County. But for the second part, kayaking through the salt marsh.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to have to say live your best adventure. All right. Only because the current and the tides could affect that. I definitely can see for those adventures type where kayaking through the marsh is definitely a relax and recharge. But for me, it'd be a live your best adventure. Yeah.
I'm in the process of looking up different kayaks and trying to figure out how I'm going to get on the water in my own backyard. So that's definitely looking as a best adventure of doing something like that. Sampling every shrimp and grits dish in town.
I mean, that is definitely live your best adventure in my book.
Yes.
And that is I might do that soon.
Yeah.
Again, for the third or fourth time.
Yeah. And I hate to relate all the questions to me. This is how we kind of got to these questions.
Yeah.
But my wife went to Blackstone and,
Yep.
she's normally a fan of just getting French toast. And I always tell her, stick with what you know because you can't be upset with getting something you don't know.
That's right.
Well, she didn't listen to me and she went with the shrimp and grits and she said it was the best thing she's ever had.
Solid choice.
So definitely I was in the wrong there. Get out there and try as many different things, especially if it's shrimp and grits here in our area. A ghost tour in the historic district.
I mean, that's a live your best adventure just for the sake of it. And listen, the ghost tours that the Kappa group put on during the October season is a good way to hear the ghost stories of the area, but also the history. Mm-hmm. But also a horse-drawn carriage at night in Beaufort when the temperature's great. Fantastic way to kind of get through it.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
Nah, it's solid.
And reading a Pat Conroy novel on the porch.
Definitely a relax and recharge, and you would not be not be surprised at how many people comment on our social media about finding out about the area through a Pat Conroy novel.
Yes.
And kind of seeing it through his eyes and through his words, and then the star of his novels is almost always the setting. Mm-hmm. And Beaufort has been the setting of several of those, and people find it. So it's definitely relax and recharge.
I agree. If you're actually being able to read the book and sit out, it feels like you're in the novel itself every time.
Absolutely.
See, no matter your style, there's a way to find your intercoastal. Whether it's through history, adventure, food, or just soaking up the beauty of the Lowcountry, it's all about discovering what speaks to you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Intercoastal Podcast. We hope we've inspired you to find your intercoastal. Wherever your journey takes you, you can follow us on social media at visit_BeaufortSC on Instagram or at BeaufortSC on Facebook. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review, and share our podcast with the others who love the Lowcountry. We'll talk to y'all next time. This has been another episode of the Intercoastal Podcast, hosted by Daquan Mickens and the team at Visit Beaufort Port Royal in the Sea Islands, produced by Relic.